Welcome to the Jukebox Podcast from WP Tavern. My name is Nathan Wrigley. Jukebox is a podcast which is dedicated to all things WordPress. The people, the events, the plugins, the blocks, the themes, and in this case, a new, fun, exciting event happening at WordCamp Europe next week. If you'd like to subscribe to the podcast, you can do that by searching for WP Tavern in your podcast player of choice, or by going to wptavern.com/feed/podcast, and you can copy that URL into most podcast players. If you have a topic that you'd like us to feature on the podcast, well, I'm keen to hear from you and hopefully get you or your idea featured on the show. Head to wptavern.com/contact/jukebox and use the form there. So on the podcast today, we have Jamie Marsland. Jamie runs a WordPress plugin business and has recently become a full-time content creator on YouTube. You might know Jamie from his popular WordPress speed builds on that channel, where contestants have just 30 minutes to build a website from scratch. In this episode, we dive into Jamie's involvement with WordCamp Europe, where he'll be bringing this speed build format to the live stage. Contestants will race against the clock to recreate a pre-built website, all while being interrupted with questions from Jamie and the audience. Jamie shares how this concept evolved from his own website recreations and how it quickly gained popularity within the WordPress community. He talks about the insights and feedback that both participants and viewers have gained from these speed builds, making it more than just a fun challenge. We also get into the technical aspects of the competition, including what tools and plugins are allowed, and how the time constraints add both pressure and excitement. Jamie discusses the importance of bringing more interactive and engaging content to WordCamp events, hoping to make them more dynamic and participatory in the future. Towards the end, we talk about how these speed builds can bring a fresh perspective to the WordPress community, potentially attracting a younger, more diverse audience. If you're attending WordCamp Europe, or you're just curious about how WordPress can be made fun and engaging, this episode is for you. If you're interested in finding out more, you can find all of the links in the show notes by heading to wptavern.com/podcast, where you'll find all the other episodes as well. And so, without further delay, I bring you Jamie Marsland. I am joined on the podcast again by Jamie Marsland. How are you doing, Jamie?
Good morning. I'm very good.
You are one of the few people that I've had back on, and I don't think I've ever had anybody back on quite as quickly as you are. But this is time sensitive, which is not often the case, because we're going to be talking about something which is going to be featuring in WordCamp Europe, which is happening in the next few days. Actually, it's about 10 days out, something like that. Do you want to just introduce yourself to those people who haven't come across you before? Although that is now a dying breed of people, I suspect. But do you just want to introduce yourself and give us a little bit of background to this particular topic?
Sure. I'm Jamie, and I run a WordPress plugin business, and that's all I do. Oh, and occasionally I do some YouTube videos now, and YouTube's kind of taken over. I'm pretty much a full-time content creator, but I do have a plugin business as well. So go and check that out if you're listening. And I've been running these WordPress speed builds on my YouTube channel. And I've run about 4 or 5, I think, so far, where contestants get 30 minutes to basically build a website. So it's fast and furious, loads of fun. We get loads of people on the live chat. We had some real stars of the WordPress space on so far. And it's coming to WordCamp Europe next week.
So you're going to be on the stage at WordCamp with, 2 contestants vying to build the exact same thing in a very confined amount of time.
Yeah.
Do you basically put a website, a pre-built website from out there on the internet somewhere and say, okay, you've got 30 minutes to make that, go?
Yeah, exactly. They haven't seen it. They see it when we see it on stage, and then they get 5 minutes to prep. Then we start the clock. They get 30 minutes to build it, whilst at the same time being hassled by me asking lots of extraordinarily stupid questions, and we get people from the crowd asking questions as well. They've got to build it while actually commentating on what they're doing, whilst getting lots of questions from people as well. So it's high pressure. It's a great format. It's a really short and sharp thing to watch.
So did you initially do it as just a bit of fun to create some content and then unexpectedly realize there was some pearls of wisdom to be gained from it?
Yeah, the inspiration came from, because I did on my YouTube channel for a while, I've been doing website recreations. I've done about 10 or 15 or something. Famous websites I recreate in half an hour. So I've been doing it myself on my channel, just me. And I thought, actually, this would be a great format if you had two, just popped in my head one day, two people actually competing to build exactly the same website in 30 minutes. So I put a tweet out just to gauge, as I often do, gauge interest, and people were really interested in it. And then I approached Brian Cords and Mike McAllister, two good friends of mine, to see whether they'd be willing to be the first on the show. And they agreed. They were amazing. And then we've run about 5, I think, so far, with some really famous people in the WordPress space. But it is a very fun format, deliberately fun and aimed at being fun. But the feedback I'm getting, especially from people in the WordPress product space, like Ben Rittner from Cadence came on last week, they find it really useful from just a stress testing product user testing experience to do that. They're finding real value in it over and above just being a fun format. So it's a really interesting space. And there's lots of ideas I've got of where we could take it next as well.
Do you give them the same WordPress version? What I mean by that is, in the 5 minutes, are they allowed to go and install into their WordPress website a whole collection of plugins which may make the job for them a little bit more straightforward? Or is it vanilla WordPress core blocks all the way?
Yeah, no, they're allowed to do whatever they like. So I do a little bit of prep for them. So for example, for Ben, I installed Cadence and Cadence Pro. Over and above that, I don't really want to install too much, but they're allowed to go off and basically install anything that they like. There's no limits on, they can go and use Bricks or Beaver Builder or Elementor. But obviously every time they go off and install a plugin, that's eating up into their time. So it's a bit of a time penalty every time they want to do that. But there's no limits. Once the clock starts, they can do whatever they like.
And I'm guessing you're not picking, for example, the Google homepage, which has got one search field and a logo. I'm guessing that you're trying to get them to do much more complicated things, loops and all sorts of other things. Just describe the level of complexity. Are you deliberately trying to find the most difficult website that you can manage? Ling's Cars, for example.
Ling's Cars is coming up at some point.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's definitely going to come up. Rich Table which is coming on this Thursday, actually, as well as next week. I mean, I just think seeing Rich Table with someone with such a defined and beautiful design aesthetic taking on Ling's Cars, it's just got to happen at some point. I don't think I can stop myself from that happening.
But you are picking a difficult website.
I'm picking, what I'm trying to do is a combination of like a few things. One, famous, so people kind of know it. That's not always the case, but also there'll be some challenging and there'll be some good learning for people watching it. So it's not just 30 minutes of fun, although it is, because a lot of the feedback I get after the 30 minutes is up, we ask the players to go into the back end of the site and tell us how they built it. And people love that. They get lots of learning from it. I try and choose sites which are visually beautiful and interesting, have some challenges, but also there's going to be some really good learning for people as well. So those sort of combination of things. Obviously, Ling's Cars meets all those criteria anyway. So it's right in the sweet spot.
If you haven't come across the Ling's Cars website, dear listener, please pause the podcast now. Just go and Google it. Ling's, Lings.
And actually, Ling's Cars has had a lot of people talking about it because as a piece of design, it has some real... Like I was chatting to Tammy Lister about it the other day. I mean, people have written articles about Ling's Cars because it actually works as a piece of design. It has enormous personality and there's no other sites really like it, and it's driving a lot of business to them. So although I kind of scoff about it, it is, as a piece of web design, it's very effective.
It's a full assault on the senses in every way. You know, it really does demonstrate what's possible on the internet.
My accessibility friends don't particularly think it's great, but it has some issues on that regard.
Yeah, I could imagine. So everybody that you're putting against each other, there's two people and there's you sitting in the middle, if you like.
Yeah.
And they're trying to do things as rapidly as possible.
Yeah.
Now, presumably, a lot of muscle memory for them will come in. You know, they're just familiar with, okay, I can see that I need to lay out this, I need a sidebar here and what have you. Do you get to kind of interrupt and say, wait, hang on, what happened just then? Or do you wait until the 30 minutes is up and then quiz them? Or are you allowed to say, just repeat that a little bit?
I interrupt continually because I think that's quite interesting and it puts more pressure on them. And we actually had Nick Diego on a few weeks ago, and he was answering questions from the live chat about what's going on in core at the moment, which is just brilliant. I have this amazing idea that I think I'm going to introduce a bit more jeopardy. So halfway through the build at some point, I'm going to have like a siren go off and it's going to be a change spec request from the customer or something like that, you know. We suddenly veer off in a different direction. Or the customer says, can you make the logo a little bit bigger or something like that?
Can you make it pop?
Make it pop, yeah.
Yeah. Essentially, we're giggling about this because it feels like a lot of fun. And I do wonder, the reason that you've brought it into WordCamp Europe, do you have an opinion about that in terms of, do you think that the events could do with livening up a little bit? I mean, we all talk about how wonderful WordCamps are. I think it's fair to say that most of us enjoy them when we go there. But do you think they could do with a little bit of excitement, drama, gimmicks, whatever the word is?
Yeah, I mean, it's not just WordCamp. I think all live events, it's like worth thinking about what can you bring to that event that you can't watch online, that you can't get if you're just sitting at home in your office. And I think events like this, you want to be in the room for an event like this because there's going to be audience participation. To be in the room is going to be a different experience than watching it on your computer screen because you can watch the live streams. And I think the more stuff we can bring that to WordCamps, because for me, the real value of WordCamps is the people bit, you know, whether it's inside or outside. And I think this is going to be highly interactive and fun. So I think, yeah, if we can do more stuff like this, which aren't traditional kind of event type things, then that'd be great. That said, I have no idea how this is going to go. It might be a complete disaster, in which case we'll come back in a month and say that was a really bad thing.
But you're interested in filling up that room and trying to get people involved. And is it going to be a bit more pantomime than workshop? In other words, are you hoping that the crowd will, he's behind you, that kind of thing? Are you hoping for people to be literally interjecting and yelling out, no, do it this way, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a fairly, because I pitched it in, I don't know, about a month ago. So it's been we're still working out some technical stuff with the technical team. But yeah, it's going to be music, I hope. And a big part of the online ones is that there's a clock constantly ticking down that people can see the whole 30 minutes, which just ramps up the pressure. So we need to have a big clock on stage and stuff like that.
But the technical aspects, so there's going to be 3 people on the stage, your 2 contestants, for want of a better word, plus you. How is everybody going to be able to see what they're doing? Are you going to have one big screen on one side and one big screen on the other, showing what your 2 contestants are actually doing at that moment?
To be decided at the moment. The backstop is that we do it the same way that I do it online, which is I'm kind of operating and I'm flicking back and forth between the screens. So if we had one screen, it still works because we can just flick back and forth between, so we can see what Rich is doing and what Jessica is doing at different times. So ideally we'd have 2 screens, but I'm not sure at the moment whether that's technically going to be possible, but we'll see. I don't know.
So just speak to the actual learning then, because obviously you started this and it was a little bit of fun, but prior to clicking record, you said that you'd had a few people on who did some fairly remarkable things, not just in terms of the speed with which they could do it, but also presumably fairly creative. Have you managed to get actual learning out of it, not just purely entertainment?
Do you mean me as a WordPress user?
Well, yeah. Do you feel like your audience are getting something? Or does the format kind of lend itself more to entertainment and less to, I don't know, introspection of what they were actually doing?
There's definitely more, if you're going to have a pie chart, there's definitely more entertainment than learning. The learning slice is relatively small, but there is a lot of learning. There was a great episode with Fabian and Kim Coleman. And they were incredibly quick. And a lot of that speed was through shortcuts. So I've suddenly, in my personal WordPress usage, I'm now using a lot of shortcuts. And that has saved me a whole bunch of time. The last one was Justin Tadlock and Ben Rittner from Cadence. And they were building the Rolling Stone website. There was quite a lot of complexity in the grid layouts. A lot of people wouldn't know that stuff, or the feedback I get, don't know that stuff is possible. And so I think there's loads of learning. There's also loads of learning in terms of what's possible in Core and what's possible in like add-on plugins like Cadence. That was really interesting to see that direct comparison of Core can do this much and because it's got a query loop block, but the Cadence query loop block is a lot more advanced. So if you really want to go advanced, then that's an interesting comparison to make. So I think there is lots of learning, and the feedback we get, could we do a wash up after the half an hour is up where we get the players to go into the front end and then the back end and talk us through how they built it. I think that's really interesting. What they also do is they always say how they would have done it. Not just how they did it, how they would have done it, or how they do it for clients. Because obviously nobody's building sites in 30 minutes for clients. So there's obviously a big gap between the way they do it on the show and the way they do it in the real life. So they'll share that, what they would have done, the purest way, I guess. So it's a bit like speed climbing, if you've ever watched that, where you've got the wall really, really quickly versus the purest sort of alpine climbing. It's a bit like that. But there's lots of value in a shorter format.
Yeah, just being able to cram that in and obviously get lots and lots done in a very short space of time because you're highly engaged and highly focused on it. And you've got the competition of beating your opponent. How has that all gone down? Because obviously you could get fairly, well, your ego could be wounded, let's put it that way. If you really reach a brick wall and you can't figure out how to progress, have you had any of that?
I mean, that's one of the most amazing things. I'm completely in awe of everyone that comes on the show. Completely in awe, because we're having like 128 people watching live. You're a WordPress professional and yet you're prepared to go on and give it a bash. I think that's just an incredible thing to do. And so I come out and everyone's done great so far. And even if they don't do great, I think people are enthralled by watching people that will have a go. And the stuff they're doing is just incredible. And these are people like Ben Rittner's, the founder of Cadence. He's got an incredibly successful business, and yet he's coming on for 30 minutes of fun, and we're watching him build a site. And we've had lots of these people that are just at the top of the game, like Nick Diego and Brian Courts and Fabian and Kim and Rich Table this week and Jonathan Jernigan. These people are like, these are serious WordPress people, and yet they're prepared to come on and be prepared to fail. Nobody has, but that's an incredibly brave thing to do. So I'm completely in admiration of them.
Do you have a winner?
Well, maybe I should do. I haven't yet. That was the idea. So in the first few, I kind of got the people in the live chat to vote, but a lot of them were just voting for the people they liked. It was a bit like a popularity contest. At the moment, it's not necessary because it doesn't feel like there is needing to be a winner at the moment. And that's not really the idea of it, I don't think. But that said, I can definitely see where I have a day of like a World Championships of speed building where there is a sponsor and there is a prize and it gets a little bit more competitive. To be honest, I'm just kind of feeling my way in the format.
Yeah.
Some people say the format's too short, and I understand that viewpoint, but it's short deliberately because it's half an hour of people's time, half an hour of fun, and I don't want it to be, people's time is precious, and I think it's good to have time pressure. But the format may change a little bit, but I don't foresee it changing a lot at the moment. But yeah, no, there's no real winners at the moment.
Do you think WordPress, the ecosystem of WordPress, and I know that you think about this rather a lot, how WordPress pitches itself into the marketplace of website building amongst commercial competitors like Wix and Squarespace. Do you think WordPress needs something like this? Does it need a bit of a shot in the arm to make it a bit more fun, interesting, entertaining? Do you feel like projects like this give WordPress a bit of a boost in a way that it may not have had otherwise?
Oh, I hope so. I do think about this a lot. Too much, probably. My view on WordPress is it's this incredibly beautiful, radical idea that was started 21 years ago. And yet some of the content doesn't reflect that always, especially when it's compared to its competitors. It's almost like, I don't know if it'll be too hard, but some of the content's almost like local government type content in a way. It's quite dry and technical. So yeah, I think that there is definitely a space to create some more entertaining type fun content around WordPress, which has kind of been the rationales of my channel anyway.
I think also we're living in an era where, and I don't actually have any statistics about this, but it feels like the demographics are skewed towards older rather than younger in adoption of WordPress. And I don't know what the throughput is of teenagers coming in and being interested by it, but in a generation brought up on platforms like Instagram and TikTok, where entertainment really does directly lead to interest in certain things. So I can just point to my own children and see absolutely the straight line that's gone from the mobile phone, the silly video that they've watched, into something that they're curious about in the real world. We do need things like that because, well, we have to engage them where they are. And if WordPress as a platform wishes to continue, I suspect we are going to have to do more of these kind of entertaining, interesting, engaging pieces of content.
I mean, there's a shocking stat, which is because I'm in a YouTube mastermind group with a few people, and generally the female demographic on YouTube runs about 10% of our audiences. Now mine's just gone up to 20%. If you compare that to, my guess is if you compare that to Wix or Canva, well, I know Canva is running about 50% female audience, definitely users. So just from a purely kind of selfish market point of view, WordPress has a big, and I'm not talking about equality here, I'm just talking about if you're trying to reach a market, WordPress has some big challenges in terms of its Asian demographic and its male-female split for sure.
So tell us when it's happening, because I suspect a few people listening to this, we're going to try to push this out. It'll come out hopefully before the event, but let's just imagine a worst case scenario. I fail to do that and it comes out after the event. But nevertheless, tell us what day it's on. And if you're in Turin or Torino for WordCamp Europe, when is it happening? What time?
Okay, yep. So we're on June the 14th at 5 p.m. and we're in track 3, which is hall 1. So please, everyone, come along, pack out the room. It's going to be loads of fun to finish the day.
If this ends up being really, really popular, you're going to be the one event that nobody wants to be in the speaker lineup at the same time as. It would be a little bit like if we put you on at the same time as Matt Mullenweg's closing address. You can be fairly confident that lots of people are going to go in that direction, yeah.
If it goes well, I'm hoping that they'll invite me on all the WordCamps around the world, and this will be part of wouldn't that be great?
Part of the gimmick, yeah. Part of the infrastructure. That would be really nice. Okay, Jamie, we've managed to get to about 22 or 3 minutes there. Is there anything you want to add before we knock it on the head?
We probably haven't mentioned who's actually on it, which is Rich Table and Jessica Lushik are going to be the two players. So again, an epic battle. We've got male, female. We've got Europe, USA. What else do you want? And 45 minutes of fun.
Honestly, it sounds like real entertainment. I hope that it goes well, that there's no technical gremlins and that you manage to get through it all and that it's an enjoyable experience for you as well as the audience. Yeah,
honestly, there's so many moving parts. It's like juggling while trying to write a speech and a lot going on.
Well, very best of luck. Congratulations for getting this into WordCamp, and hopefully you'll do many more online in the near future too.
Cool, thank you.